Talking baseball, baseball and the O's.
Welcome back, Birdland, to another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Benny Becker. Thrilled as always to be sitting down here with all of y'all talking Baltimore Orioles baseball. Fantastic episode we have on our hands today. We're going to be recapping the Diamondback series from earlier this week, recapping some injury news, some important injury news, talk about the Orioles double play troubles, a lack of the Homer hose, lack of Orioles magic, a whole lot of what feels like negativity right now in Birdland that we have to talk about. But you know how we do, gang. You know how it is in here. We're going to still have a lot of optimism that we believe is realism. And we're just going to be honest. We're going to shoot it straight with you guys. And we're going to see how we feel. We're going to tell you how we feel, gang. And so we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Today's episode's coming out on Friday, not Thursday like we typically do on our Monday Thursday schedule between the off day for the O's, some not great results, plus some big stories that we wanted a little extra information on. We decided to push yesterday's episode to today, so we're giving you Monday and Friday this week. But remember, throughout the season, expect episodes every Monday and Thursday. Be sure to check out our Instagram, TikTok, X, at Talkin Orioles Baseball, gang. Interact with me, interact with the show. We'll put your comments, your questions, whatever you got up here, and we'll discuss it live on the show. All right? So, a lot of good stuff coming, a lot of important topics, but let's just start out back in the desert in the Arizona Diamondback series that we had in the beginning of this week. Game one started out fantastic. We were coming off of that Royals series, and we were talking after that Royals series about how eye-opening maybe that series was. Between some sloppy play and some poor results, you thought maybe this was the reality check moment for these Orioles. Headed to the desert, get to some nice weather, vibes start feeling a little better, maybe the bats come alive, maybe the pitching shores itself up. Well, in game one, that's what we got, gang. O'Hearn started us early with a first inning solo home run to make it 1-0. In the third, you had a Gunnar double followed by an Adley single that extended the lead to 2-0. Ended up getting extended to 5-1 in the fifth off a 2 RBI Mountie single where he really worked the count and drove the ball right back up the middle. It was classic Mountcastle if you're not thinking of Mountcastle in the power sense. Gunnar Henderson had himself his best day so far of the season. 2 for 4 with a walk, 2 stolen bases, and scored twice on the day. Ryan O'Hearn also 2 for 4, had that home run, also had a double as well on the day. Really, though, obviously the results worked out, but it was the most impressive at-bats all season that we've seen these Orioles take. As a whole, as an entire game goes, these Orioles had Zach Gallen, who was no joke of a pitcher. Very, very solid guy. He was a guy that when we were previewing the series, we talked about how special he could be and how talented Zach Gallen was. And he still is. Frankly, though, the Orioles really found a way to not only get to him on the stat line, but get to him in his head. Gallen started going away from his best pitch, the curveball, because either the Orioles were watching it for balls or hitting it hard. And O'Hearn specifically, I think on both of his hits, especially the home run, really hitting that curveball hard. It made Gallen have to get out of his comfort zone, not use that pitch that he relies on so much. The Orioles ended up having 3 2-out RBIs on the day. Just shows you that they had guys in scoring position. They had these moments, and they took advantage of it in this game. Something the Orioles really haven't done great so far this season. And it was just impressive to see them grind these at-bats, work these counts, and find some favorable results, which, surprising enough, is what happens in baseball. If you're playing good baseball, if you're playing fundamental, if you're working counts, if you're seeing a lot of pitches, good things are going to come. Good things are usually going to happen. We were only 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position and grounded into a double play. That's a theme that's going to not only continue in that series, but really has continued throughout the entire season. Also an error in the field for these Orioles. Zach Eflin had the start, and it was another fantastic start by Zach Eflin. Really what we've been seeing all season from Eflin. 6-inning pitch, 4 hits, no walks, only 1 K. Might be a reason for that, but also only 1 earned run. Ended up leaving the game early after 6 innings, but he was only at 73 pitches. And at first, when you see it, you're thinking, oh, Brandon Hyde's out thinking himself again. Brandon Hyde loves to do this, where a guy pitches 6 innings and his pitch count is low and he's humming and he's feeling good and you trust him, but still Brandon Hyde takes him out, especially this early in the season. That tends to be a Brandon Hyde move. It wasn't on Brandon Hyde, though. Zach Eflin complained of arm fatigue. Again, he only had the 1 strikeout. It seemed like he didn't have the velocity that he typically has that day. And frankly, we'll get more to that, but that is obviously a horrible, not only incident, and it's terrible timing, but it just kind of starts summing up what this Orioles season has been in the early days. Truthfully. But we'll have more on that Zach Eflin, not only injury itself, but also the ramifications and the ripple effects off of that injury. The bullpen was great yet again. Cano, 1-inning pitch, 2 Ks, no hits, no walks. Soto, 1-inning pitch, 1 hit, no walked, no Ks. Batista, 1-inning pitch, no Ks, no hits, no walks. Still, remarkably, even through the rest of the series, the Orioles still do not have a save opportunity. Kind of mind-blowing, guys. Absolutely baffling. So that's going to take us into Game 2. It was a very close, tight game, especially towards the back half at the Orioles. We'll just talk about it. We'll talk about what happened. Started good and progressively kind of went downhill. 2 in the first off a bases-loaded single by Mullins. That started off the Orioles hot again. But Charlie Morton got himself into trouble early and often, as has been the case in Morton's 3 starts so far this year. Started the game with a hit by pitch and then 2 consecutive walks for the first 3 batters he faced on the day. That just kind of showed you what was going to happen. D-backs end up getting 1 off of it. Josh Naylor grounded to a double play, which obviously the Orioles will trade in that moment, but still, you don't want to put yourself in that position at that point. Corbin Carroll home run led off the bottom to tie it at 2. Naylor had a 2-run double in the 5th, making it 4-2. And then the 7th inning happened, and all hell broke loose. All chaos on both sides of the field start happening. So to start the 7th inning, Cedric Mullins led off with a double. Tyler O'Neill then got a walk, but it was on a very bad check call on a 3-2 count. Merrill Kelly, the pitcher who was pitching that day for the Diamondbacks, probably coming out of the game anyway at that point, ended up arguing, getting himself tossed from the game. Torey Lovello, the manager of the Diamondbacks, argued the case, got tossed from the game. So then the Orioles obviously have 2 on, no 1 out. Heston then lines out. Gary Sanchez gets hit by the pitch, loading the bases with 1 out. Holiday then hits a sharp line drive, really a frozen rope to left field. Lourdes Gurriel came up on it and ended up making kind of a shoestring catch. It wasn't clear for sure he caught the ball, but he ends up then throwing the ball to home as Mullins is tagging. He completely airmails the ball. Mullins scores. Tyler O'Neill actually rounds 3rd right on Mullins' heels, and it looks like he might score. He checks up. He winds up back at 3rd. And for a second, it was like, okay, exciting stuff going on. Still big opportunity. And then quickly, you start wondering, how could Tyler O'Neill, if he was tagging up at second, be on Cedric Mullins' heel, who just tagged up at third? It didn't conceivably make sense until you see the replay, and Tyler O'Neill kind of gets caught in the middle of second and third. Not sure if the ball's caught, not sure if the ball ended up getting caught. There was no call on the field, which confused Tyler O'Neill even more, so he kind of just got to a spot where he just decided to just run, and Orioles end up challenging the catch. The catch was upheld. Run ends up scoring, but ultimately an inning-ending double play results from it, as Tyler O'Neill had obviously not checked up at second, and it was too late by the time you review it to go back and check up at second. So just a mental error. We've seen a few of those from Tyler O'Neill so far this season. I still love the bring-in. I still love the guy, and he's still been producing at a decent clip, especially early on this season, but ultimately, those are the mental errors that run you out of a ballgame. However, then in the 8th inning, Adley had a 1-out single, gets pinch run by Mateo. Mateo steals second, steals third. 1 out, man on third. You're in a position to tie this game. Mountcastle hits a slow roller back to the pitcher. Mateo gets himself in a rundown that, frankly, to me, looked like he could have gotten back to third had he just committed to it instantly. Because he ran home, saw that the pitcher got the ball. I believe the pitcher threw it home at that point. So Mateo heads back to third, but he's doing so in like a cautious, I'm in a rundown way. And if he had just turned and sprinted and got back to third, I think he may have had that opportunity. Don't know for sure, but it seemed to me like had he just quickly just bolted back to third, who knows? We would have had first and third with 1 out. Instead, we end up having Mountcastle on second, who reached there during Mateo's rundown. However, there were 2 outs. Westberg strikes out the next batter, and the inning ends. And just like that, the Orioles lose yet another chance to tie or take the lead in this game. Excuse me, my allergies are crushing me. So if you see me kind of wiping my eyes or wiping my nose, just know it's the time of the year the allergies crush me. Anyway, on the entire day, the Orioles are grounded into 3, or excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. On the day, the Orioles only had 3 guys get hits, 4 total, 2 of which of those hits were by Mullins. They had 1 error. They were 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position, and they grounded into 2 double plays and then had that 3rd double play. So 3 double plays on the day. You just, 1, aren't taking advantage of your opportunities, 1 for 6 runners in scoring position, but also just continuing to hit into these double plays. It's something we're going to talk about a little later, but ultimately it's a frustrating start, and it's just another game that kind of sums up what the season has been so far for these Orioles. Truly. Just frustrating, sloppy play, mental errors, not driving guys home when you have the chance. Stinks. Charlie Morton got the start and was yet again underwhelming. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 5 walks, 4 Ks, 4 earned runs. Worked out a lot of jams, but just disappointing. He kept the team in the game, but barely, man. Like, again, yes, we had the opportunity. We were in the game. He, quote, did his job. But I think he would tell you he didn't really do his job properly. Again, just look how the game started off. Hitting the first batter, walking the next 2. Ends up 1 run coming in the inning, but working out of a lot of jams that you just got yourself into. That's the problem. Bullpen, though, was great again. Aiken 1 1/3, 1 hit, no walk, no Ks, no runs. Baker 2/3 of an inning, 0s all around. Sir Anthony Dominguez, an inning pitch, no hits, 2 walks, 1 K, no run. So, just a lot of missed opportunities offensively. And again, mentally just running yourself out of innings, not focusing on fundamentals, really just struggling at parts of the game that this team has seemed to not struggle with and be strong at these past few seasons. So that takes us into the rubber match. Game 3, Orioles have yet to win a rubber match so far this season, and it only continued in Arizona. This one was very, very ugly. 9-0. Orioles only have 4 hits for 4 total bases. D-backs, meanwhile, have 14 hits for 29 total bases. And it started not great and wound up getting out of control. So the D-backs got 1 in the first, 1 in the third, 5 in the fifth, and 2 in the 8th. Obviously, that 5th inning is where things really spiraled out of control. Orioles, yet again, not driving in runners in scoring position. 0 for 3 in that, plus another 2 double plays on the day. Very, very frustrating stuff. Dean Kramer, 4 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 1 walk, 4 Ks, 6 earned, 3 home runs total he gave up. Again, started off not that great, clearly. Again, 1 in the first, 1 in the third. A lot of runners on base, but really managing that. And again, getting out of jams, which you don't like to see your pitchers get into jams. But if they do get into jams, you love to see them work themselves out of it. Kramer was able to do that for a while, but then again, that 5th inning really spun away from him. Then Cionel Perez came in, who's had a horrible start to his year. Pitched 1 1/3 innings, gave up 2 hits, 2 walks, got 1 K, did let in a earned run as well. Then you got Bowman for an inning, 1 hit, 1 K, no runs. And then Colin Selby, the man who came up as a result of Zach Eflin going on the IL, pitched an inning, gave up 3 hits, gave up 2 earned, did have 2 Ks, but certainly not what you want to see from guys you do like. Now, Bowman and obviously Selby are at the very bottom of your bullpen. Game's already kind of away from you, so it is what it is for them not to have the best success, even though Bowman had a decent game still. But Perez obviously is a concern moving forward. He's been a guy this team can rely on in high leverage situations for a lefty. And it seems like the stuff is there, but the control just is not. You have to wonder if CNL has kind of lost what he found 3-4 years ago with the Orioles when he was able to gain that control. Or you wonder if it's just kind of not clicking early for him. If it's just not the best start and he can regain it pretty quickly, or if it's lost for good. Time will tell on that. Overall, just another disappointing game, leaving us feeling underwhelmed and disappointed. Now, on the slight positive, the O's did have 13 hard hit balls that day. That's 95 miles an hour or up. So they were hitting the ball very hard. Just a lot of times at fielders, clearly. Only 4 hits on the day for the Orioles. So sometimes you get some bad luck. And again, the game did spiral out of control in the 5th inning. And certainly in the 8th, it just was the cherry on top. You want to think if maybe some of those hard hit balls found gaps, got over walls, we put up some hits, some runs. Who knows? Maybe that 5th inning does not get away from us. And even if it does, maybe we're still in a position to have a better reliever in the 8th inning and not give up those extra 2 runs. And who knows, maybe give yourself a chance to come back. Overall, though, clearly a disappointing road trip. 2-4 on the road trip. Drop going 1-2 in Kansas City, going 1-2 in Arizona. And you're in a tough spot right now if you're the Orioles, frankly. Not the start that we wanted by any means. And it's tough, gang. It's tough at this point where we're at, but there's a lot of good things still to like. We're going to touch more on it, but the 5-8 start from these Orioles obviously is not where you want it to be. Now, we're going to talk about injury news because, again, there's at least one big injury that happened in that series that we need to update you on, and we need to keep you updated on. So Zach Eflin, as we told you, hit the 15-day DL, so he's out till at least April 23rd, April 24th, which would be one of the last 2 games of a 3-game set against Washington that's coming down the line. Now, that's not to say that that's when he's coming back. There's been no official word on, one, how he's doing in these first few days, but also when the Orioles really are going to bring him back. He was pulled for arm fatigue. MRI revealed a low-grade lat strain, which the fact that it's low-grade is very, very good to hear. He was actually shut down for about a week until the O's reassess it. Typically, these things last 2 to 3 weeks. If it's more severe, it will be a month plus. And if it's even more severe than that, he could need surgery. Now, luckily, it doesn't seem like that last one's the case. Still, there's some worry maybe the O's bring him along cautiously, or maybe he just recovers slowly. And this team might be without Zach Eflin for the next month plus. It's certainly a reality that we're living in at the moment. Hopefully, though, he can get himself back by the end of April and really regain that spot as the most consistent starter in this Orioles rotation at the moment. We actually saw the exact same thing happen to Zach Eflin after we got him last year in late August. In fact, we were recording an episode live I had on MLB Network in the background when the news broke. It was just after, minutes after, I had a huge segment about how Zach Eflin is a major key for this team down the stretch and how big he's going to be for this team. And then within minutes, he gets shut down. And he did come back by playoffs, but certainly it just didn't go our way once we got there. So there was an epically funny and yet painful video clip of that whole thing happening live on this podcast. And me just completely devastated. I highly recommend you go, again, to our @Talkin Orioles baseball Instagram, TikTok. Check out that video because I think you'll get a laugh about it, even if, you're kind of painfully laughing at it right now because we're back in the same position. Now, Orioles have some options and some time, okay? And we're going to talk more about that in the next segment. We're going to talk about kind of the ripple effect, the domino effect, if you will, of Zach Eflin going down, but also with the schedule the Orioles have and the options that they have moving forward. All right, so the next name that we have to talk about as far as injuries go is going to be Albert Suarez. We know Suarez was shut down after one appearance so far this season. That was one of those where the velocity was down. You thought it might just be a week or two thing, and now it's clearly something more. Albert gets moved to the 60-day IL, diagnosed with a grade 2, stick with me, right, subscapularis strain. I actually think I did a phenomenal job pronouncing that, but certainly I don't even know if I did or not. Not expected to need surgery at the moment, but will be out a long while. To quote Brandon Hyde, quote, "It's going to be months. Hopefully, it's just a few months." Clearly, that's not what you want to hear with an injury. Brandon Hyde also called it, quote, "a big blow." The quotes make it sound like it could be season or even career ending. Again, Albert Suarez is 35 years old, and he pitched great for us last season. Essentially came out of nowhere, pitching in Korea, Japan, Dominican Republic, a bunch of different stops over the past few years and not named Major League Baseball. And he was a big part of the pen, not only last year, but honestly coming into this season. He thought he was going to be a big piece to the pen. He was in that long relief role. He could make a spot start if he needed to, already on the roster, so you wouldn't have to move people up and down for it. Listen, once we get some starting pitchers coming back from injuries, and we got a long list of them right now, this should be less of a blow. At the moment, it is kind of a blow. And already, Albert was on the fringe to potentially lose that roster spot when guys started returning. Because if Albert wasn't performing, especially the way he was performing last season, there's a lot of names coming back. And roster spots are not guaranteed. I know everyone loves Albert in that clubhouse. He's a great clubhouse guy, continues to spend time with the team, it seems like, even during this. I hope that continues, that even through these few months, maybe not every game he's in the dugout, but at least every so often, Albert's showing up, especially during home games. Maybe he doesn't go on the road, but neither here or there, spending time around the team and keeping that attitude and that vibe around. We know that he was the honorary fish during some of the fishing celebrations. And I'll never forget last season when Ryan O'Hearn warmly welcomed Albert back into the clubhouse after he got called up last season. I believe it was after Tyler Wells got injured and Albert Suarez got called up in his place. And apparently it was just a huge warm welcome. Everyone was thrilled to see Albert back. So again, even if we can't have him on the field, I really do hope that he stays around the guys, stays in the clubhouse, chills in the dugout. Now, on some positive news, Grayson Rodriguez continues to progress back from when he was shut down in spring training. Through another bullpen session on the 7th. This is, I believe, his third bullpen session. And he remains in the throwing program. He hasn't had any setbacks, which is the biggest news, really, that we've gotten from Grayson Rodriguez since he's been shut down. Technically, he's already eligible to be reinstated, but it seems like he's going to just continue to have to build up. I could see it possibly being in the next 10 days in that Washington series that we previously had talked about. That would put his ramp up at about 4 weeks since his shutdown, which, they were saying he's going to need about a month when they shut him down. So that would be logical. But again, I think the Orioles, even in the position they find themselves in now, are going to be cautious with a guy like Grayson Rodriguez. So maybe it's not 4 weeks from that. Maybe it's 6 weeks, which would then, put him an extra 2 weeks behind that 10 days. So really another 3 weeks. We'll see. We'll see, gang. I don't know. I got no inside information. All I have is the information that they've been giving, which is obviously very held tight to the vest, anything that's serious. But that brings us to our next topic, which is going to be the rotation situation, which, again, we lost Zach Eflin. We've lost Grayson Rodriguez, at least at the moment. And with Eflin out, the Orioles now have a 4-man rotation, which is clearly something you can't keep going for long. But based off of how the schedule is, it's something that we could stick with at the moment. They're still deciding how to fill Zach Eflin's spot in the rotation. And with off days yesterday and Monday, the O's might not need a fifth starter for a little bit. Again, they brought in Colin Selby up from the taxi squad to take the spot on the roster, but he's a reliever, so he won't be making starts either. And when you break down the calendar, the O's could potentially at least make it till April 19th with a 4-man rotation. So, again, they could go about a week until they need that fifth starter in the rotation. And Eflin provided the O's much-needed consistency. And that's going to be greatly missed. Because right now in the rotation, we do not have that consistency anywhere else. I'm very hopeful that Charlie Morton and Tomo Sagano can step up in his absence and be those consistent anchors for this rotation. I really think that we saw Sagano take that next step in his second start, his last start. And I'm really hoping that we're going to only continue seeing that consistency today against the Blue Jays. Whereas Charlie Morton, we have not, well, I guess we've seen consistency in his inconsistencies. We've seen a lot of swing and miss stuff and strikeout stuff, but we've seen a lot of runners get on, a lot of walks, a lot of hits, and really not providing that consistency that Zach Eflin provided for this rotation. Hopefully, the veteran Morton can get himself in the zone to where he is providing that consistency. To quote Charlie Morton, all teams have injuries. It's just, as an individual, stepping up and doing my job. Hopefully, he's taking this upon himself to go, look at what he's done so far this season, look at what the Orioles need, and step up and do his job, like he said. I think that's the type of message, though, that's great for the rest of the staff to hear as well, and understanding they need to pick up the slack. A guy like Dean Kramer, a guy like Cade Povich, obviously Tomo and Morton. Again, those are the 4 names we got at the moment, but they all need to look around and go, we don't have Zach Eflin to count on for the consistency right now. We don't have Grayson Rodriguez at the moment to count on for electric stuff. We don't have Kyle Bradish to count on to give you Cy Young caliber starts. We need to step up. We need to pick up this slack because this ain't going to last forever. We're going to be getting back those names. But at the moment, we need to find a way to be better. We need to do our job, step it up, and perform consistently for this team. Or else things might get real ugly real quick, which I'm hoping it doesn't. Now, assuming that Kyle Gibson, Grayson Rodriguez, Chase McDermott, and Trevor Rogers are not ready to come back yet, we know that names like Suarez and Bradish and Wells aren't going to be ready to come back yet. So assuming that those 4 names are not ready to come back by the time that the Orioles need a 5th starter, I think the name is very obvious who it's going to be, and that's going to be Brandon Young. It would be his major league debut. Last year, he was our minor league pitcher of the year. But frankly, when you look at the 40-man rotation, he's the only one. He's the only possibility. Because out of all of the pitchers on the 40-man rotation who are not injured and are in the minors, he's the only one who's made starts this season yet. You got Gonzalez, Petit, Stroud, Wolfram, and obviously Selby, who is just in the minors, who are all pitchers on the 40-man rotation, none of which have made starts. The only one not in the majors, not injured, that has made starts this year is Brandon Young. So that's the name, gang. Expect that to be the guy. And frankly, again, he had great stuff last year in the minors. He showed good stuff in camp this year. And already in his 2 starts in 11 1/3 innings, he has yet to allow an earned run. So I'm excited. I don't know exactly if we can expect phenomenal results by the guy when he comes up, if he comes up. But hopefully, whoever's replacing him, I assume Brandon Young, will only get 1, maybe 2 starts until Eflin, Grayrod, and Gibson are all ready to come back and pitch for this team. And right now, Eflin and Grayrod cannot get here soon enough. And frankly, Kyle Gibson can't get here soon enough. I didn't think I'd be saying that a couple weeks ago when we signed Kyle Gibson out of camp. But, gang, again, it has not been pretty for the rotation. Hopefully, though, Eflin can work through this dead arm, come back very quickly. Grayrod will continue progressing positively, and we'll see both of them making major league starts again at the end of this month or at least by the beginning of May. And then this rotation can look a little bit more complete, more like a major league pitching staff. All right, so we're going to talk about double play trouble. The Orioles lead the MLB with 16 grounders into a double play. 16 times grounded into a double play. And frankly, if you just want to talk baseline double plays, there might even be 1 or 2 more that aren't counted in that stat, because that stat, I believe, is just ground balls that result in double plays. Not like, for instance, that play in Arizona where Tyler O'Neill doesn't tag up and we end up getting doubled up, which has happened at least twice, including that play, if not more this season. I remember there was one with a man on first and a hit and run that we ran into a double play. I believe Adley was a part of that one way or the other. Neither here or there. It's not good, gang. Let's just go with that 16 number. Again, not add in the other ones that were not grounders. The next closest team is the Sacramento A's at 14. In fact, there are only 6 teams right now with double-digit grounded into double plays. Last year, the Orioles had a major league record. Not only led major league, but a major league record with only 71 grounded into double plays. Already, they have 22.5 of 22.5% of last year's total in only 8% of the season. So obviously, it's an anomaly. And it's even more of an anomaly when you look at how our ground ball rate from last year to this year is almost identical. I think it was sitting around 41%. Maybe after the last game or two, it maybe jumped a little higher potentially. But even so, it's only a couple percentage points around where it was last year. And it just seems like bad luck more than anything. And I don't want to make excuses, and I don't want to just be like, oh, that's bad luck. It'll turn around. I mean, last year was clearly an anomaly. If we set a major league record at 71, that's the anomaly, right? That's not going to be the rule. But this also can be an exception and not the rule. And when you look at how hard the Orioles have hit balls that have turned into double plays, I mean, it seems more and more likely that it is kind of just bad luck. I mean, you got multiple guys who have multiple double plays where they hit the ball over 100 miles an hour. Listen, that happens sometimes, but it's happening a lot more so far this year than is typical. And while the season total might wind up being much higher than last year, I do believe the rate should slow down as it averages out into something a little more normal. So we'll see what happens with that. The season still has a lot of time left. 92% of the season remains. And again, the Orioles have grounded into an astronomical amount of double plays compared to last year. So, things aren't fun right now, gang. I wish they were. I wish I could tell you things were fun. They're not. All right. Now, despite all of that, the team is, quote, not panicking. Team is still trusting in the process. They're still trusting in the talent. And while the vibes clearly aren't as high at the moment, they still seem pretty good. When you listen to the quotes, when you understand, like, even after the Arizona and Kansas City series, there wasn't like a team-only meeting, a players-only meeting. They're not panicking. They're not trying to start doing things that they don't typically do. They're trusting in this process. And 5-8 is obviously not the start we wanted. And it's kind of mind-blowing when you start looking at where the Orioles are and how long it's been since they are where they are now. They're 3 games below 500 for the first time since July 8th, 2022. In nearly 3 years, the Orioles haven't been 3 games under 500. That's where they find themselves in now. This is the first time the O's haven't won any of their first 4 series of a season since 2010. Gang, 15 years. And a lot of those teams were crap in between. Like, yeah, we had the good stint from 14, end of 13 to beginning of 16? And then obviously we've been good the past few years. Gang, the majority of that time frame, we were not very good teams. And this is the first time we haven't won a series in the first 4 series since 2010. Now, I will say there's a slight asterisk where the first series of the year was a 4-game set that we split. So it's not like we've lost every series, but gosh, does that not, that's really not something to tip your hat to. That's not really something to hang your hat on. So, yeah, gang, it's not great. The team's 5-0 when scoring 5 or more runs, and 0-8 when scoring 4 or less runs. So, I'm not saying they have to get to 5 plus, but obviously that's 5 runs is about the number that you want to average as an offense. You're trying to get to. I feel like that's kind of that magic number, and it seems like for these Orioles more than ever. But also, I can't necessarily say that exactly because there haven't been many tight games. So, sure, while we lost 4-3 in Arizona, for the most part, if we only put up 3 or 4 runs, the other team had 8, 9. And if we put up more than 5 runs, a lot of times we put up 8, 9, 12, whatever it may be. So it's not like these games are really close. So we'll see what happens. We're still hitting the ball very hard, like we talked about when we were talking about the double play problem. And I really think one of the keys is getting Gunnar back alive. So, look no farther than that game 1 in Arizona. When Gunnar had his best day, the Orioles had their best game in at least the past 4, 5, 6 plus games. So, with Gunnar coming alive, with Gunnar doing better, that's only going to result in the lineup itself just doing better. But I can't put it on just one guy. I can't. The rotation ERA, too, is clearly not good enough. 5.37. And then you look at some of the individual starters. Charlie Morton, an 8.78. Kramer at 8.16, each after 3 starts. Now, Cade Povich also had an ERA that was extremely high, but they changed the ruling of that Jorge Mateo misplay in center field the other day. So that actually brought his ERA way down to about half of what it was. So Povich's ERA actually looks all right now, but still, that's not really telling the full story. To quote Brandon Hyde, though, guys are keeping their heads up. We've got to keep working. Talked about how you'll always face challenges through a season, but we've hit those challenges a little early this season. We're not panicking in the clubhouse. And continuing to say that they remind the guys that they're really good players and keep encouraging them and staying positive, which is what they need right now. So I do like that. There is no panic, guys. This team still fully believes in themselves and ultimately where they can get to moving forward, but it's not the best start, gang. And clearly we haven't had a start like this in quite some time. So where's the magic? We always talk Orioles magic. Where's Orioles magic? It seems to be lacking so far this season. There's plenty of games where the O's have had a chance to come back and win. Look at that game 2 in Arizona. Some looked like we would, but they rarely have been able to come back or mount those comebacks. And really, I can't even really think of a game where we have come back and won. They've been on some verge of Orioles magic, though, this season. But so far, it seems like that magic kind of works against them. Again, look at Game 2 in Arizona, where there's funkiness and there's these incidents, and it's just moments that are not only we're not capitalizing on those moments, but swing the game even farther away from us. Maybe not necessarily on the scoreboard, but at least mentally. Like, again, in that game 2 with that Jackson Holiday where he lined and Mullins scored and O'Neill didn't tag up and that whole situation, like, sure, you gained a run. You were down 2 before that, and then you ended the inning down 1. But momentum and mentally, it just crushed you. And then, again, you get Rushman on with 1 out. You get Mateo in there. He steals second. He steals third. Feeling like there's some magic, and then instantly it's just taken away with a slow roller and a rundown. Expect this team and its core group to find those magic moments in this season and to have them start coming through more often in those moments. But it's also not crazy to foresee possibly not being that kind of team this year, gang. Because we have been that kind of team the past couple years. And sometimes that magic just doesn't show up for whatever reason. I still believe Orioles magic feels like it runs deep in this team. And that we are going to have those moments and that things are going to start clicking at some point. And hopefully, at the very least, those moments start to go our way down the stretch of the season and into the postseason. Even though there's a lot of fans that might be losing hope in this team's ability to even make the postseason, let alone win in it, I'm not there yet. I still believe that this team can find a way to turn it around. We're certainly not the best version of ourselves right now. We're certainly not playing like the best version of ourselves right now. But I'm not losing hope in this team and their ability to create Orioles magic this season. One of the things that certainly doesn't really make that big of an impact, but I think in the weird world that sometimes we live in where things that don't matter actually do make a difference, I think is going to make a difference whenever it appears. And that's, where is the Homer hose? We were told last road trip that when we get home, when we get back, we're going to have a Homer hose. Well, that didn't pan out. We didn't have anything for that homestand. We went on the road again. I don't know if it's going to be something new or something old. I hear something's in the works, but I'm not really sure. And while we haven't been hitting home runs as of late, a part of me does believe that once we do add it back, the home runs will also come back. And that, again, there is no correlation, and yet there is a correlation. Obviously, we've seen the new Wet Willie celebration at first, the fishing celebrations at second and third. Listen, again, we've heard something's in the works, and I expect after a tough road trip for something to make an appearance this homestand. And maybe that just starts bringing a little more vibes and momentum and home runs to a team that desperately needs all of them. All right, gang. So we're wrapping up soon. But after all of that, after everything I just said, where do we stand? At least in my eyes. Where do we stand? Well, I believe most fans right now feel pretty vindicated. Most fans were upset with off-season moves and the lack of going for it, if you will. They thought Mike Elias wasn't making the moves to go for it, just holding, stashing prospects, afraid to let anyone go. Plenty questioned the starting pitchers, for sure. Even non-Orioles fans were questioning this starting pitching staff. And at the moment, again, you might feel vindicated. The team remains optimistic and positive things will turn around. Many players have started off well, too. It's not like this entire team is just putting up horrible stat lines. If anything, oftentimes the problem in these games has been the timing of the success not falling in line with other success. So again, not driving in runners in scoring position. It's not that we're not getting guys in scoring position. It's that we're not driving guys in. It's pitchers allowing too many men on base, even if they're working themselves out of those jams and keeping the team in the game. It's just taking out of the rhythm offensively, or it's just making guys maybe work too hard in the field, or whatever the problem may be. It's just these things not falling in line with each other properly to result in wins. Now, I'm not going to lie. The team has played sloppy and oftentimes poor mental baseball, especially during this last road trip. Errors, missed throws, not tagging up properly, getting thrown out trying to advance on a wild pitch. I believe that was Ryan O'Hearn. It was first and second, and Adley took third. And Ryan O'Hearn kind of had a slight hesitation and ends up getting thrown out at second. There's plenty to clean up. And there's plenty of time to do it in. Like last season, I think we got into some bad habits early. And we need to just more focus on the fundamentals and playing smart baseball. And the rest of it's really just going to fall into place. I truly believe that. Now, there's questions of if this team can turn it around and play winning baseball. And again, a lot of fans thought that they might be on the outside looking in this year, coming into this year. And at the moment, you probably feel correct. You're looking at and going, I told you we weren't even going to be 500. And look at this team. We're not even 500. Yeah, it's early. But yeah, you're right in the short term. I'm hoping you're not right in the long term. And frankly, I expect things to start turning around at some point. Hopefully soon. Team has dealt with a lot of injuries and bad luck. We've talked about that. And yet, the team is still stacked, especially offensively. We have either proven veteran hitters who have shown the ability to hit consistently in this league, or young guys just reaching their potential. Guys like Heston, guys like Jackson, even Westy, Gunnar, Adley are all young players still reaching their potential. Pitching staff is still far from complete, especially this moment with Eflin gone from it. But reinforcements are eventually coming. So again, just like we were talking about with the pitching staff, with your Tomo, with your Morden, you have to take this upon yourself to stop this, to up your game, to rise to another level than you've been so far to provide that consistency. Cade Povich and Dean Kramer, just make sure you're continuing to show progress and continuing to keep your team in the game, which frankly, for the most part, they have, despite some bad numbers as well. Now, there's still plenty to love about this team, especially I believe so, and I remain hopeful for this season. Like we continue to say, you can't win it this early, but you can certainly lose it this early. And the Orioles, despite how poor that they've started, have not lost the chance to compete this year at this point. And frankly, you'd rather finish hot than be one of the hottest teams to start. We saw that the past couple years. This team gets out of the gate really hot. 2 years ago, one of the best teams in baseball at 101 wins. Last season, at the All-Star break, again, one of the best teams in baseball, and then just fell off a cliff in that second half and had no chance in the postseason. You'd rather see that flipped. Obviously, you need to see your team play well enough to get to that postseason. But if you reach the postseason, you'd much rather have started slow and ended hot rather than started hot and ended slow. So that's where I stand, guys. Still very optimistic about this team as a whole moving forward. I really think the next week or two might still be, a bit of a drowning feeling. Just treading water, trying not to fall too far behind as you wait for these reinforcements to come back. And once those guys start coming back, hopefully the offense is clicking a little more, and adding those better starting pitchers can just really allow the Orioles to play better baseball. And there is good reason to think these Orioles are going to actually be able to survive these next couple weeks. So we start a series with the Blue Jays tonight, kicks off a 9-game homestand for these O's. But more than that, they're not back on the road until the 22nd. That's actually beginning in D.C., that road stint. Sure, they have to go to Detroit after D.C., but essentially 18 of their next 21 games are either in Baltimore at home or in D.C. just down the road. So these Orioles are not going to be traveling much in the next 3 weeks. So it gives you hope that these guys can get a little relaxed, get a little comfortable in the uncomfortableness that has been this season, and start turning things around. Guys reaching for the opportunity. Guys taking that next step. Being the one to step up in somebody's absence. So I'm excited, gang. Again, you have a lot of home or at least local games in the next 3 weeks. You need to do pretty well in those, right? So let's break down real quick the matchups in this Blue Jays series we're going to see. Game 1, we get Tomo Sagano against Bowden Francis. Sagano coming off his first major league victory that he had in Kansas City. Second time facing Toronto. The first one we know he had to leave early with hand cramps, and while he started off definitely slow, it looked like he was starting to get a little more comfortable. Still was uncomfortable in that first major league start. Hopefully we see a much more comfortable Tomo like we did in that second start, as opposed to that first start in Toronto. Francis has given up only 2 runs in each of his starts this season, so Bowden Francis has pitched pretty well so far this year. Game 2, you get Cade Povich against Jose Berrios. O's absolutely smashed Berrios on opening day. That was when they put up 12 runs. I believe 6 or maybe a little more was against Berrios himself. Since then, Berrios has given up just 3 runs between his 2 starts. So, while he had a tough game against the Orioles, Berrios has turned it back on. Hopefully, the Orioles can really find a way to get to him again. Cade Povich has some good, has some bad. Like we said, his ERA actually is looking pretty all right since they changed that Mateo play to an error. However, not every stat's great. So he does have a 10.5 strikeout per 9 going, and also, I believe, a 6-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, which is both very impressive numbers. However, if you look at his batting average in balls in play, it is 529, gang. 529. So out of the balls in play, over half are going for a hit. And that's not good when you're pitching to contact, like Cade Povich essentially has been. His last start, he couldn't stay out of the heart of the plate. Certainly wasn't walking guys, but he was grooving it like right down the middle. And that's not going to play. In fact, that's going to result in that 5.29 batting average in balls in play. Both pitchers in this game could potentially get crushed. So don't be surprised if this is an absolute slugfest in Game 2. Game 3, we don't know for sure who's starting for the Orioles. I believe most likely it's Charlie Morton, who would be pitching on normal rest. But we'll see. The Orioles could decide to push him back that day and bring up somebody for that game. Certainly, we will see closer to that game. Easton Lucas, you might be saying who, or you might be saying, oh, I remember that name, because he used to be an Orioles prospect a few years ago. He was traded for the one Japanese reliever we had. Off the top of my name, I can't remember what his name was, but Easton Lucas has performed very well in his first 2 major league starts. Actually hasn't allowed a run in those 2 starts this season. So Easton Lucas has shown a lot of good stuff, and my heart's saying he's due to get pummeled. You know, a young pitcher very rarely is going to be dominating in his first few major league starts. It's looked like he's been pretty dominating in his first 2. Hopefully, then, he is due to get pummeled. I could really see these Orioles just turning it on instantly in this Toronto series. It's something I said going into the Diamondback series. And in Game 1, it looked like they may have. And then it kind of got away from them again. I'm hoping you get back home, you get to your beds, you feel better, you're in Camden Yards, you're facing a team that you're very confident against in the Blue Jays, and you're facing one pitcher who you have really good success against in Berrios, and 2 pitchers who might be due for a bad outing, who have each had 2 good outings. I'm hoping that we can at least take 2 of these 3, if not maybe all 3. I don't think that's that insane, even though a lot of fans are very negative right now, for good reason. All right, gang, so we're going to wrap it up talking just slightly about this new Earl Weaver biography. I certainly don't have a copy of it yet, but I'm very excited to get my hands on this and check it out. It's called The Last Manager: How Earl Weaver Tricked, Tormented, and Reinvented Baseball by John W. Miller. It's getting rave reviews. A lot about Earl's antics, deep dive into statistics, his ability to adopt new tools for the game he loved, like I'm forgetting, radar gun, excuse me. I was going to say a pitch clock or some stupid stuff. A radar gun was one of those. But either way, you have all sorts of antics, not only through his manager career, but I believe throughout his life in general. And while O's fans might be somewhat familiar with the story, certainly it feels like there's details and stories that we do not know about, and it sounds like an absolute must-read for any baseball fan, but certainly an Orioles fan. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to get my hands on a new copy of The Last Manager: How Earl Weaver Tricked, Tormented, and Reinvented Baseball by John W. Miller. All right, gang, that was today's episode, the Bad News O's, episode 48. It was a great episode, even though the topics may have been more pessimistic and negative than certainly we usually are, and certainly we would like. But hopefully, by next Monday, when we are talking next, we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. We have a positive series against the Blue Jays. Maybe 2, if not 3 victories in that series. And things are starting to look a little better. In the meantime, gang, all we can do is keep our heads up, keep our wings a-flapping, and keep rooting for these O's, gang. So with no further ado, this was another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I appreciate you listening. Let's go, O's.
Talking baseball, baseball.